All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Nonprofit Enthusiasts Live. I am so excited to be here as we conclude our topic for the month. So last month we talked about program management, and this month we're getting ready to go into volunteer management. So if you know someone that needs to be in on these conversations, please go ahead and tag them in the chat box so that they can tune in as we kick off this month's topic of volunteer management. So definitely invite your friends over to the Facebook group and then tag them in the chat so they can tune into this. If you're catching us on replay, give us a hashtag replay in the chat box. And we're going to get started shortly. If you're here, just let us know you're here by giving me a hey, how you doing in the chat box, what's going on? And we're going to get started shortly. We're going to kick off our conversation on volunteer management for this month. And I'm so excited about it. Special thanks to this month's sponsor. We have Prosper and Partners, a global personnel and organizational consulting firm that seeks to develop innovative solutions to complex problems. And we'd like to thank them for sponsoring Nonprofit Enthusiasts Live this month with us. So definitely please check them out. We'll share their information in the chat box and learn more about this month's sponsor. Awesome. Hey, Sarah, good morning. Hey, Shay, good morning. Awesome, awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and dive right in. So this month, we do have quite a few guests that's going to come on, and we're going to talk about this topic of volunteer management. And my job today is I'm just kicking off the topic so that we can start thinking about what do we need to do in our volunteer programs to make the most of this month's conversation. So you all, and I haven't talked about this in a while, I like to talk about people, processes, and technology. And if you attended any of those trainings in the past, we haven't had them in a while, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So this is a framework that's used in businesses often to help scale businesses. And a nonprofit is a business, so we definitely should be using it within our nonprofit organization. So people, process, and technology. And it's an ongoing cycle. Each time you get people in place and you have the right processes in place and technology, you continue to go to the next level. Okay, I need more people. I need better processes. I need more technology. It's a continuous cycle that does not end. And I could tell you all it works. So with that, with this framework, it can help you grow your nonprofit, making it better, faster, and more efficient. The people in this model is who are the people doing this work. And I felt like I wanted to bring this up today because some of the people in your nonprofit may be volunteers, right? The process is how are we getting it done? And so pretty much what are the people doing? So one thing is when you have your volunteer program, it's not just having the people, making sure you have a detailed process for these volunteers outlining what they're doing and how they're doing it, right? And then there's technology. What are we doing with the work? What tools are we using to get it done? So how are we making this, because today is focused on volunteer, this month is focused on volunteer management, what technology do you have in place to make sure these that your organization is efficient? So let's say you choose to have people and processes, just having, you have the people and you have the process, you're able to scale your nonprofit. People and technology, you're able to implement innovative solutions for your nonprofit. And process and technology, when you put those together, you're able to automate within your organization, right? But when you have all three of these, people, process, and technology, you're ready and you're equipped to take your organization to the next level. So with that, like I mentioned, volunteers are a part of people. So making sure this month we're talking about that. What does your human capital look like, particularly in the space of volunteers? So I'm going to start off really quick with the definition of a volunteer. And I know we all know it because at some point, I'm sure you were one, right? And you probably are one now. So volunteers is someone who contributes their time, their skills, experience to an organization or group and gives it for free, right? And we know how important volunteers are to nonprofit organizations, especially one of our volunteer teams are who? Our board, right? A lot of our board members are on a volunteer basis. And we know that volunteers bring so much value to an organization. So I'm going to read this out really quick. And it talks about why using volunteer, and it literally spells out volunteer. So if you're like, hey, and I love this for smaller organizations where the founder is doing everything. Do you have a volunteer program in place? And you may find that volunteers come in, but they're right back out. Maybe you're missing something like the process or the technology to make sure that they know what they're doing and they're empowered in doing so. So why use volunteer? V, valuable is the work you do. O is outstanding, how you always come through. L is loyal, sincere, and full of good cheer. U, it is unitarian in your efforts through the year. N is notable, are the contributions you make. T is trustworthy in every project you take. E is eager to reach your goal. And E, effective in the way you fulfill your role. R, ready with a smile like a shining star. And S, special and wonderful. That's what you are, right? So I don't know any better way to describe why to use volunteers and the value that they bring to an organization. And if you're tuning in, go ahead and type in the chat box, what are some reasons that you use volunteers within your organization? Something that you definitely want to do. So my goal today is just to set us up for the conversations that's going to be happening throughout the month, and then also make sure that you know your homework in sense of looking at your volunteer program and seeing what you can improve upon. What areas do you need to be able to grow for your volunteer program? So there's a volunteer cycle that you may have heard of, which goes into planning the volunteer program, recruiting volunteers, developing orientation and training, supervising and evaluating the volunteer program, and along with recognition for your volunteers. So thinking about, do we have all of these pieces in place? Do we have strategies for recruiting our volunteers? Is it easy? Are we still using, and nothing's wrong with the paper applications, but we know there are so much systems that can help us streamline and become more efficient when it comes to recruiting our volunteers. Are we, do we have an orientation and training in place for our volunteers? What does that look like? So you may, let's say, okay, you have this online system, volunteer fills out the application, then what? What happens? What happens as a part of your process? Do they go through orientation and training, or are you doing interviews with them? What does that look like? Make sure you think about what happens in between. And then you definitely want to make sure you have orientate training in place so that they feel equipped and ready to take on the task that they'll be working within. And then supervising and evaluating. We need to evaluate our volunteers and ask them how we're doing. That's a great way to be able to expand your program and implement their feedback, and they'll also see that, you know, their feedback is valued within the organization. What kind of recognition program do you have in place for your volunteers? Just like you do for your staff and those that you serve, do you have something in place to be able to recognize your volunteers? So making sure that you look at those. So I kind of talked about that cycle. So this month, I really want you to think about, do we have all of these things in place? And what will this look like in order to put some of these things in place? And then if you need help, jot some of those questions down. And as we continue throughout the month, we're going to have different guests that are volunteer managers, certified volunteer managers on, and you can ask them these questions. So that I'm just want to get you ready for what's ahead and what's coming, okay? And we talked about the benefits of a volunteer program. Some additional ones are volunteers enjoy feeling accomplished. They're able to gain new skills. And something that I think about, and so I remember when I started my nonprofit organization, it started out with mentoring youth every other weekend. And I share this story. So what happened was those youth started getting older and then they wanted to come back. And that's actually when we expanded our volunteer program. We had volunteers, but then we got more volunteers because these youth wanted to come back. And then others would come that were interested and see what they're doing and just jump in and be a part of it. And it's a huge part of what we do within our organization, to the point where not only are we doing individual and family volunteers, we have capacity building volunteers, which the individual families may help with. We have event-based volunteers, and we also have corporate volunteers. And we actually, this week, we had a corporate volunteer project, was absolutely amazing. Over 200 employees that were brought together to do projects that we were able to go out and distribute to nonprofits within a community. It was so much fun, but of course, something like that, you have to have a really good process and systems in place in order to be able to manage those type of large projects like those. So I remember just doing that, and I know the value and the importance of volunteer programs. If you don't have one, and especially if you're a founder, you started an organization, you're like, I'm doing everything myself, it is worth backing up, taking a moment and coming up with this process, so that not just throwing volunteers in there, but making sure you have your process documented. So when they come, they know how to do it. By nature, I typically, within my own organization, I have done a lot of the roles that we've had, but when I'm doing them, I do them with the intention that someone else is going to do it. So I always build it in, I build a process for it, along with kind of look at what systems we can integrate with it. And then after that, once it's already built, whichever, train and hand it off is kind of how I like to do that. So yes, so that's this month's conversation. We're talking about volunteer management, getting your volunteers, how to make sure you recruit volunteers, keep volunteers within your organization. Again, my goal was just to kick off the conversation. If you, for homework, make sure you take a look at your volunteer program, come back throughout the sessions that we'll be having throughout the week with various volunteer managers with your questions. And I always like to say this: if you're like, I don't know what to do, my nonprofit, we got so much different things, I got so much different, I guess, goals, I just need to, I don't know what to do. I always like to say, use our theme. So last month we talked about programs. So let's say last month your goal may have been focusing on your programs portion of your organization. This month we're talking about volunteers, volunteer management, and no matter what position or what you're doing within the organization, you can follow these themes. So to make the most of these, I definitely encourage you to follow these. And then also you can check out our guide section of the group. So just if you click on the guide section, you'll see past conversations around these topics as well. And then we'll continue to add as we have these live sessions throughout the month. So definitely make sure that you do that. Also, before we head out, I'm going to ask that you take a moment and invite a friend to the group. We're over 800 now. So if everyone just invites one person, so take a moment, and I'm going to ask you to do it right now. Go up to the button, and even if you're on replay, I'm talking to you too. Go up to the button within the group, click on invite, and can we invite, I know I said one, but can we invite a couple friends to the group? So that way, the more, the merrier. We're able to learn off of each other and continue to support and grow together. All right. So that's all I have for today. I just want to give you all a snapshot as to what's coming this for this month. So once again, I'd like to say a special thank you to Prosper and Partners for being this month's sponsor. We truly appreciate all of our sponsors for believing in you all and allowing us to do these live sessions on a weekly basis for you all. So, all right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week. We have, like I mentioned, a lot of volunteer managers coming on this month. So I'm looking forward to these conversations. All right, everybody. See ya.